Sunday's Gemara Daf Chav Ches, and we'll continue the Gemara Mishnah, the following Mishnah. Shiva Kani Menorah. A menorah has 7 branches. Ma'akva Zezah, you need all 7 branches. Shiva Neiroser, there's 7 cups on top of the menorah. Ma'akva Zezah. If any of them are missing, it is disqualified. So we're continuing the same theme, but whenever something is made up of parts, you need all parts. The 2 portions of mezuzah, shema v'yishmoi, ma'akva zezah. You need both of them in the mezuzah. Furthermore, I feel ksav echad ma'akva. Even one letter is missing, it's ma'akiv. And this is how our Gemara digresses from Menachos to all of these subjects, which we'll go on for the next 10 blot or so. Dala Pasha and more. Dala Pasha fill the 4 pashas that fill Makazazu. You need all 4 pashas, Shmava, Yishmoya, Kadar, Hogacha. Any of them missing is possible. And furthermore, I feel like Ksav but even one letter is missing, it is possible. Because it says Ksav Tom, you need a Ksiva Tam, all that should be there. Dala Tzitzis Makazazu, you need 4 corners, and all the 4 tzitzis should be in the tzitzis. Shabbat mitzvah, because it's one mitzvah. Abbas and Amitzvah, the 4 separate mitzvahs. Whatever you have is still filling a mitzvah. You can't say you have them in Yitzhak, which we'll talk about later in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, okay, let's discuss that. First of all, my time. Why is it that you need all 7 Kani Menorah? You need all 7 branches. Because why? Because Havoya Ksivbe. Because it says over there the word Havoya. It says Yi you. When we said before, Yi you Tiyana means this is how it has to be. It's not about we learned. Now we'll focus on the menorah. Menorah Yisabah, Mina Eshes, the menorah itself is made out of one chunk, one block, and Minas are made out of gold. Also, Mina Glutoy made out of a piece of gold, not a block. Psula is possible. It has to be Miksha Achas, one block. Bishai Minag Shade, even though it says Zoh, but if you have other forms of metal, is also kosher. So what I understand. The Torah says 2 things. It has to be Miksha Achas, one block, and then it has to be Zav gold. So why do you decide that gold is ideal? You don't use other metals, but when it comes to a block, you say, no, this is critical. And if you don't have one block, it is possible. What's going on here? Ma'ishtam in is possible to see Miksha has to be one piece. And it says, Bahavoya, it says, and the Pasik Mimenu, Yiyu, so therefore we know it has to be from one piece. And yet Sham Mitkin Matkas, but yet other pieces of metal, he says, all right. But Zav, it says in the Pasuk you should make menorah Zav, it has to be gold, and the Pasuk finishes off in menorah Yiyu. Bahavoya. Omakra. Says the Gemara answers, Omakra, in the very part, it says in the Pasuk, you should make a menorah Zav Torah Miksha Te'oseh. Te'oseh means sort of you expands. You can make it any way you want. Te'oseh, the rabbis, to expand, include Sham Matkas, any form of metal. Says the Gemara, so what happens? You have Yiyu that comes to limit, and you have Yasa that comes to include. Maybe the other way around, maybe it's coming to include pieces. So it can be. That the word Yiyu is closer to the word Miksha than to the word Zav. If you go to the end of the pasuk, Yiyu, but if you go to the beginning of the pasuk, first it says Zav Tar, and then it says Miksha. So therefore, this the word what do you call it? The word Yiyu is closer to the word Miksha, that has to be one solid piece, then Zav has to be gold. That's why it has to be one solid piece. So the Gemara Teyasa Nama Miksha. But if you look in the pasuk, in fact, the word Teyasa is written right after the word Miksha, as if to say, let's expand on Miksha. You don't have to have a one block, even pieces. So what it says, Miksha la'akiv Zav, yeah. So my answer is miksha lakev. It says more than once miksha. It says a few psuk in the word miksha, and we said before, whenever it repeats something twice, that's how it has to be. It has to be one block. All the psukim that repeats miksha says zov. In fact, it says 5 times zov, 4 in Shmais and 1 in the later on Midbar, and it says 4 times miksha, many times. So you want high might? No. If you're going to tell me, if you're going to tell me that you cannot have pieces, but you can have other materials, then we learn, then we have an explanation for each time the Torah uses the word Zav, comes to teach us something, comes to teach us a new dinim regarding this. When do I say you have to have so-and-so if it's gold, but if it's other materials, you don't have to have so-and-so. So for example, if you're going to tell me that what, a block is possible, but you can use other forms of metal, then I would say, Zav. I understand why it says a number of times the word Zav, or Miksha. Why it says a number of times the word mixture lidrasha comes to teach you all kinds of dinim, as we'll see in a minute. But if you're gonna maintain that no, you don't have to have one block, it could be pieces. But but any other material is possible. Then I'm gonna ask you, why does the Torah say so many times of gold? Once is to teach you the din, and once is to tell you that this is how it has to be. And what are the other ones for? Miksha, my drasha. What in the world are you gedashing from them? And the Gemara says, my drasha. What do you mean? What are you talking about? What drashas? I'll give you an example. We learned it said in the pasuk kicker zav that the gold should be a kicker, right? One kicker. Tor yasa oisha. That's how much you make of gold. So we dashin. It's called a kelim eila. In fact, all the kelim are made from gold. Bo zav bo kicker. So we dash as follows. If you're going to use gold, then it has to be the size of a kicker. However, ain't a bazov. If you use other metals, then ain't a ball kicker. You don't have to have the size of a kicker. It doesn't have to be the weight of a kicker. So here we have another reason. We have an extra zav to tell you that only zav we insist on kicker. Another example. You need on a menorah, in addition, we'll soon learn. You had this the cups, the kaftera, the buttons, and pracher, the flowers. So again, if it's made out of gold, you need all these additions to enhance the menorah. But again, we just explained another time why the Torah uses the word zav, to tell you that only zav you have certain din, but not if the other one. Ask the Gemara, the Eiman Nami, if you're going to make that diuk, we should make another diuk, that you don't need any branches. Ema Nami, Boz, if you know you're made out of gold, Kani, you need the 6 branches. But ain't a Boz and the middle stem. Ain't a Boz but if it's not made out of gold, ain't a Boz, you don't need any of the branches at all. Why don't you say that following your pattern of learning here? Thinking about that's different. If you're missing all the branches, it's no longer a candelabra, it's no longer a menorah. It's just a lamp. A whole palm would make it, just a lamp. So the Gemara says, it says in the pasuk, "V'zeh ma'aseh hamenorah miksha zav." This is the Ketubah menorah miksha zav ba miksha eina ba zav eina ba miksha. When do you need it to be one block? Only if it's gold. It's another drasha. If it's gold, you need it one block. And but if it's not made out of gold, then it doesn't have to be chiseled out of and fashioned out of one particular block. So we're learning a number of dinim from Zav. One is that you don't need a kicker if it's not gold. One is you don't need the knobs and the cups and all that if it's not made out of gold. And the third thing is it doesn't have to be one piece, one block if it's not made out of gold. So you have a reason. I explained all these extra golds why it's written. Okay, Moshe said, fine. Mixture the safe for the Mayasa. So all these okay, we use one of the mixtures to tell you that when do you need mixture, only is made out of gold. But there's one extra mixture. What do you do with that? Lemute chatzaitzes, to tell you that the silver trumpets that Moshe Rabbeinu made, which we learned in Parshas Baloischa, doesn't have to be made out of one piece. Only menorah mixture, but not the chatzaitzes. The time we learned chatzaitzes by Menachos, he made the chatzaitzes out of eshes, out of one block, menachos of silver. Also, but if you made it from pieces, it's still kosher. It's still kosher, not like the menorah, it isn't. From all other pieces of metal, psulim. So here's exactly the opposite of menorah. You could have pieces, but it could only be silver. Why is it that other metals are possible? It says keser silver, v'havoya. And it says in the pasuk that this is how it has to be. So it says also that it should be one piece. Also, it says the same thing that it says so by if it's not made out of one piece, it should be possible. It says also how it has to be. So the Gemara, you know how we know? Because it says miksha by menorah. Only here you need it should be fashioned out of one piece, an extra miksha. But do not when it comes to the trumpets. Now when it comes to the trumpets. Today's already discussed over here. In other places, it seems, and we already had the Gemara before, we'll have it also in later on, and that is that they made the chatzaitzes out of the horns. Once an animal's dead, you made 7 different things out of the horns of a ram. Let's say they made this chatzaitzes, and he's saying it has to be made dafka from silver. And Teish explains that could either be a shofar, or it depends, what the chatzaitzes was used for. That's chatzaitzes was used for the Levium singing in the base of Mikdash. That could be made out of a horn. We're talking about here the chatzaitzes when you summon. Moshe Rabbeinu was told you blow once, twice. You want to summon the entire congregation. What's the point? Going to war. So let's continue about the Menorah. Tell me what we learned. Kol hakelim. Look at all the vessels. Also Moshe that Moshe made shadim loy shadim l'deiros. So not only kosher for Moshe Rabbeinu, it was kosher for future generations as well. Hatzaitzes, but the trumpets that Moshe Rabbeinu made, shadus loy the kosher for him, but a psulas l'deiros. You cannot use them in future generations. Why? Hatzaitzes is my time, but why? Ilay madama krokot says in the pasuk, asay lecha. You should make for yourself those two trumpets. So we say lecha to you. It's only for you, for nobody else. Lecha v'ladeiros. So well, look at the Aron. It says vasisa lecha. Make for yourself aroin 8, and we know there were 2 Aronis, one Batzal made, one Moshe. Moshe made the Aron was the one that went to war with. So they did use it in a few generations. Hachinama, but according to you, we should dash in the lecha v'ladeiros. It's only be used by you, nowhere else. Elas, and what it says. Whether we follow the opinion that says that whenever it says by the Moshe Rabbeinu lecha, we have a machlekes in Mariyuma. What does it mean when it says lecha? One means that lecha, you use your own money for these things, and one means lecha is David is sort of complimenting it that if it's possible that I can only have you and be yaitze everybody, they don't have to do it. I'll be much happier, pleased that you do it because I appreciate what you do better than everybody else. So one piece of lecha means it has to be your money. So means your money, as if David is saying, I appreciate yours more than them, and I wish that you be sufficient only to hear from you, don't hear from everybody else. Is hainami boy lehachi. So we hear lecha also. We need lecha to tell you that it has to be your money, or Hashem said, I'm pleased with what you do. So why is it that Moshe Rabbeinu Chatzaitzos was only limited to his time and no other time? L'chal, we said, means your money, or Hashem appreciates if you could be the only one doing it. So he answers, Shiny Hashem, you know why we dash him by Chatzaitzos, that Moshe Rabbeinu's trumpets are only for him and for nobody else? Dama Cross, and the Pasuk, L'chal today Zimna. It says twice. And because it says the Pasuk, L'chal twice, and therefore by Chatzaitzos it says twice the word L'chal, that's why we say that it's that only in your generation is good enough, and no other time was it good enough. Because it says, "I say lecha shtei chatzaitzos," and then in the very same pasuk it says, "V'hayu lecha." Let me create it. It says twice lecha to tell you that only for your generation, no other time. The Papa son of Chanim was learning before Rabbi Yosef, and he said, "Menorah hoisa bo." Mina eshes. The menorah was made out of eshes, one block of gold. Min hazov. Also, shall kesef ksheda, if you made it out of silver, it's kosher. We said before, you can have other materials. Shall bas, if you made it out of tin. Shall aver, out of lead. V'shall gistan, made out of clay shards. Is Rebbe Paisel. Rebbe says that already is possible. Gistan is not clay shard. Gistan is made out of, as Rashi says, metal mixed in with other things. Rashi says, if you actually look at Rashi, it says metal. Loshen Achim, metal. But pieces of metal, different kinds of alloys, nothing pure. So Rebbe says, no, that's no good. And Rabbi Yehuda says, not only is it good, machshir is machshir. He says it's good. What about 8 made out of wood? No, at least all of these are metals, different kinds of metals. What are made out of wood, shalets and bones, glass? Give it hakop sula. So this Brisa says that everyone holds, even Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it's not made out of metal, it is possible. Malay, so Rabbi Yosef asked Rav Papa, tell me, my daitach, what do you think is going on here? What are they arguing about? Malay, so he said to Rabbi Yosef, I think this was going on here. We have here a klal, a prat, and a klal. It says in the pasuk, vasisa you should make, and salah you can make any kind of material, from any material. And then it says in the pasuk, zov, tor, sounds like only gold. And then it says mixture to also you can make again if any material. That's a klal prat to klal, generic, limiting generic or general, and therefore you include or you expand to anything which is similar to the prat. And the question is, how far do we take it? So ma prat no fudish metal af kol shamat and metal. And only metal things. So that's Rabbi Yosef Yehuda. So Rabbi holds even metal and has to be something choshev. Lead, tin, that's not choshev. Prat and food is double choshev, has to be something choshev. Significant is not called double choshev, has to be significant. That's what Rav Papa said to Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef said, forget your brisa, it's totally wrong because I remember it differently. Because I have another brisa. And in 2 ways, it's different than what you said. what Rav Rebbe said and what Rabbi Yesi Bar Yehuda said. I learned the Brisa as follows: Klei Shadas, now Klei Shadas is a menorah. The Klei Shadas are all the same. Klei Shadas, any utensil that was sanctified in the base of Mikdash or was that's consecrated in Mikdash, Sha'os made out of wood. Rebbe Poisel, Rabbi Yesi Bar Yehuda, they're only arguing in wood. That means Rebbe would agree when it comes to other metals like tin. It's good enough. It's only wood that he argues. And Rabbi Yehuda says wood is also good. And your brisa was that Rebbe holds that even tin is no good. And Rabbi Yehuda says that wood is no good. And how do I understand the argument? We've had a number of times. There's different methodologies of how to learn a general, a specific and a general. Is it klal prat klal, or is it ribu mir ribu? When it's klal prat klal, we say all we're including is anything similar to the prat. Because klal aim b'chlal masha prat. You have a klal and prat. The prat limits it only to the prat. Comes the second klal and expands. Riba and mid is very different. Riba includes everything. Mid comes to limit to a certain extent. The second riba then expands it, everything except that which is like diametrically opposite to what the riba is, what the mid is. So that's the machlekes. Rebbe does call it prati. Rabbi Yehuda does riba mid riba. Rebbe does call it prati. Vasisa menorah is a klal. That's general. Zov Torah is a prat, limited. Miksha teos menorah is chaz of a kol. Klalu prat a klal. You have to know prat. You only include what's like the prat. Ma prat nefurish shamach metal. Av kol shamach metal. That has to be similar to the prat, metal, which is Rabbi Yisrael's version, that lead and tin and metal alloy, that's all good. Rabbi Yisrael, he says, no, riba means riba. But even there is riba. It's all inclusive. Zav tar miet, limiting somewhat. Miksha teyasam leida chazariba, all inclusive. Riba mean riba. Riba hakla, everything's included, including wood. My Rabbi called mili or my meat. So what's excluding? Miet shel cheres. The only thing that they exclude is clay, which is pathetic. So he said to Rabbi Yosef, why should I forget my Bryce and think of yours? Maybe you're wrong. So he says, I'll tell you why. He says, don't even think that you're right, because the Tanya, I have another Bryce. Ainly have no gold, maybe African silver. Shal copper, metal, shabdil from tin, v'shalefedes lead. Rabbi Yisrael says you can even have from wood. Another Bryce is saying exactly what I said, that even you can have from wood. Says the Gemara, another Bryce, lo yasa adam based tavnis. You're not allowed to do a replica of the base of Mikdash in your place if it's exact the same dimension and everything else. So, for example, Aksada, don't build a porch, Keneged Ulam, like the Ulam, the base HaMikdash. Now, generally speaking, Aksada only has 3 sides, and the Ulam, the Ulam, the antechamber had 4 sides, but it had a very wide door. It was 20 amos wide, as if it had no 4th side. Chotzer, don't build a replica Keneged Azor, like the courtyard in the base of the Shulchan, don't build a replica of a table, or menorah, Keneged menorah. Well, also, you can make a menorah, Chamisha 5, Shosha 6, Shosha 8. You can make that, because that's different. Actually, interesting, you go into, if you want to go buy yourself these big candelabras for Shabbos, these lighters, you'll notice, you'll never buy a 7. You can find a 6, an 8, you'll never find a 7. Even though the shape of the candelabra on Shabbos is very different than menorah. In fact, one of the answers why Hanukkah is 8 nights when the miracle was only 7, because they found a jug of oil. One of the answers given is, you're right, it should have been 7, but then you would have a menorah of 7, and that would be a problem that it's like the menorah of the base of English. That's why they made it 8. Bishel Shiva 7 lo yaset. Don't make one out of 7. But I don't care what kind of metal it is, it's still a replica because it's also good in the base of English. Rabbi Yehuda says, don't even build a wooden replica of the menorah, if the same size and everything else, because that was kosher in the base of English. So we see again clearly Rabbi Yehuda holds that you could make out of wood. Because in the Malki Beit Chashmonai, in the story of Hanukkah, they couldn't afford to, the menorah was desecrated, they couldn't afford to make a proper one, so they made it out of wood. You want to prove from that? Nah. Shpudim Shabazla, it wasn't wood. They actually had metal shpudim, like spits. They chipum the bats, and they covered them with tin. So maybe it got dirty and over time looked like wood, but it wasn't wood at all. Hashiri, when the family Chashmonai, the Malki Chashmonai, became a bit more wealthy, also became made of silver. Chazvashim became wealthier, also Shulzah, made out of gold. The bottom line is, you see from here, according to Rabbi Yehuda, any material is good, including wood. Omar Shmuel, Mashmei the Saba. Shmuel said the name of an elderly gentleman. Goiva shal menorah shmoina asa tvachim. The height of the menorah is 18 tvachim. 18 tvachim. He doesn't bring a marker for that. I guess it's a Messiah. There was 18 tvachim. And Tosh is very interesting. He says that people say in the name of Rabbeinu Tam that the way he learned it out from it, he learned it from the Shulchan, because the Shulchan was 18 tefachim high, and the menorah's purpose was to light up the Shulchan. Interesting. The menorah's purpose, because we had more Shabbos, the menorah was mainly to light to the whole world and tell them that Hashem rests amongst the Eden. But they said the menorah's purpose was to illuminate the Shulchan. So Tate says there's no way in the world Rabbi and Tam would have said that, because it's totally wrong. The Shulchan itself was 1.5 amas high, which is 9 tefachim, and then that was the base, and then the Shulchan itself was either 12 tefachim on top of that or 15. So it was never 18. He said no way Rabbi and Tam would have said such a thing. But anyway, so now when you go through the Menorah, there was 18 tefachim. Now, 18 tefachim can be, there's an argument in the poskim whether a tefach is whether an amma is 18 inches, so each tefach is 3 inches, or whether an amma is 22 inches, so each tefach would be like 3.8 or something. And it means that if they have 18 tefach, would either be roughly 4.5 feet till about 5.10 feet high. That was a Menorah. So now we're going to tell you exactly what was on the Menorah. The Menorah is 18 tefachim high. Haraglayim. So on the Menorah you have the pasuk says you have the branches, and you have on the Menorah itself you have cups. You'll have the cups. You'll have the knobs or the buttons, and then you'll have the flowers. And we're going to make a calculation of how many of each one was there. So you have the gevim and so on. So it says the Gemara. So you have like this, high. The feet, the base of the menorah had 3 feet, and you had one flower there, and that was 3 tefachim. That's the first 3 tefachim that occupied the menorah. Then tefachim chol, the next 2 tefachim were blank, nothing, they were smooth. Then the tefach, the next tefach is tefach number 6. Shaboy there was a gevia, a cup, the kafter, and there was a button around, a round little cylinder, and a perech and a flower. But tefachim, the next 2 tefachim, cholok, that was smooth, the tefach, and then the next tefach was a kafter. You had a button, and that button, then from that button protruded 2 branches, 2 branches, one to the right, one to the left. Each one goes direction, the same height as the stem of the menorah. Then another tefach had a button there again, and that tefach another tefach that was smooth. Then the tefach kafta, you had another tefach again. So you had 3 series of 2 branches coming out, total of 6 coming out. Then you had Tefachim Cholok, you had 2 Tefachim again that was smooth. What was left in the height of the Gimel Tefachim? Shebehen, and those 3 Tefachim, you had Gimel Gvin, 3 cups. You had a Machlekes in the poskim how the 3 cups were. They were 1 sitting inside each other, or were 2 sitting inside each other, and then the Kafter Perach, and then you had 1 cup and 1 Kafter, 1 Perach all together. The Gvin, these cups, what they look like? I mean, Kaises Alexandria, these long, narrow, thin glasses from Alexandria. These buttons, what do they look like? Kemin tapuche, like the apples are karsim. They look like the apples from this place called Ketayim. Prochim, the flowers, what do they look like? Kemin pircha yamudin. The flowers, they look like the flowers that you have on pillars. Venimtzu comes out Gevin. The total of cups on the menorah was supposed to say how it was Ezra Shnaim. There were 22 cups. Kavteidim was Achados 11, and Prochim and flour was a total of Tisha 9. Each one was necessary. Anything I'm missing is no good. If any group of them is missing, the other groups are also no good. Says the Gemara. Let's work it out. How do I know there were 22 cups? The Chassid says there were neither arba givim. So it's like this. Each what do you call it? The actual menorah itself. Each branch had 3 givim. So that's already 18, and then the middle one you had 4 was 22. So it says in the pasuk, over menorah you had arba gvim, so you had 4 in the middle one, and then the pasuk says that you had shloisha gvim shekadim b'karechad. Every branch had 3, so 6 times 3 is 18, and then you had 4 in the middle. That makes it 22. And the four in the middle were the three that we illustrated, and one you had in the bottom by that base. And each kana had three cups, but one cup to one perich. Abba the day, and then you had the four in the middle. The time to say the kind of 18 of the branches, that's how you had 22. Fine. Kaftoidim, when it comes to the buttons, Nami, Achad, also there were 11. How do you get to 11? Kaftoidim, today the day. So you had two buttons of its own. Right, you have two on the bottom. The shisha, the kanim, you had six. Each kan had another one on top of it. So you had six kanim, you had two of its own. And then you had the kafter. And then you had a button by each one of the branches when they spread out. Right there at that point, there was a button. So you had like five in the middle one, and then you had one on each branch. So a total of 11. Yeah, Halchad says 11. How do you get 9 flowers? There was one on each branch, so that's 6. And today, there was 2 sitting on the thing we said before we described, tefach and din, a tefach and din. So you had 2 of its own, just like the buttons, and shisha the kanim, 6 of the branches. Tamnaya there's only 8. Where do you get the 9th one? Rav Shalma says ad yirecha ad pircha. It says in the pasuk that it should be ad yirecha until its bottom, until its legs, ad pircha until its flower, mixture, which should be all one piece. So you see there's a flower there sticking out of the base. Mikshi. Abraham said, the height of the menorah was 9 tvachim. It seems like the entire menorah is 9 tvachim. Asking about age of the Rab, Evan Hoysav name menorah, there was like a step before the menorah. Ubosh shalosh milas. This stone had 3 steps. So Leah Kohen Oimid, the Kohen stood on it. Made the nadas, and he cleaned the nadas. So if it was 9 tvachim high, the whole thing, it's impossible. And 3 steps to get there. Amalei Simiat. Are you this guy who calls Simi that you're supposed to be so smart? You should have figured out on your own. Kika Mina, I'm talking about Mesfas Kani Mulamaila. Remember we said it was 9 tvachim? 9 tvachim before the branches started. So from the point where the branches started to the top of the night, it was another 9 tvachim. And that's what I meant. And there used to be, when we were kids growing up, we were told, there used to be on the Chumash, you look in the front, there's a picture of Moshe and Aaron. Moshe was always tall, and Aaron was always short and stout. And the reason why that is, because we know Moshe Rabbeinu was 10 amet high, because he hit Oy Melech HaBashan. But Aaron, even if you hold the menorah was 18 tvachim, needed 3 steps. And the menorah was either 4.5 feet high, or almost 6 feet high, 5.10, let's say. And he needed 3 steps, which means that he was very short. And yet the pasuk says that Aaron and Moshe were shkulim, they were equal in weight as well. So therefore they made a diagram of Aaron being a big person, while Moshe Rabbeinu was tall and slim. Anyway, we continue with him later tomorrow, and we continue other discussions apart from Menachos in the next short term. Okay, have a good walk, everybody.